Hi, everybody. Sandy Day here with Beyond School Bells. I am the Director of Content and Delivery for Beyond School Bells. And I've been asked to share a little bit about what I know about after school with you. Just by way of background, I'm a K-12 educator. I worked for the Omaha Public Schools for over 30 years. I was a teacher, administrator, and then retired and became the after school program director / grant writer for the Council Bluffs Community Schools. They have 15 different schools there. And when I left, 11 of them that qualified for this program that we're going to talk to you about today, which in my opinion is the gold standard. And we went from serving, well, when I got there, 2 middle schools, so about 200 kids, to when I left a little over 3,600, which was more than a third of that school district's population. So let's talk a little bit about what after school is, what you'll likely see when you're in those programs, and maybe a couple of pointers to help you out should you need that. I'm going to share my screen and I'll make sure that I think I've already sent to OLATs this presentation so that you can go back and look at it as you may need to. So let me get there real quick. Sounds good. Okay. Okay. So what is after school all about anyway? Already introduced myself, but once you have this PDF, you'll be able to also see my email. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. The work that we do at Beyond School Bells, which is Nebraska's statewide after school network, is the content is all free, the advice is all free, and based on a lot of years of research. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well here in a little bit. I wanted to just point out, and you may already know this, but a good share of the folks who are not, really closely connected to in school and after school don't realize that of the 50 states, each state has a statewide after school network. And in Nebraska, Beyond School Bells is it. We are coast to coast, north to south. We serve all communities in the state who are looking to start a program. We help them with guidance and technical assistance. We help them with models and ways to find resources for their community. When I was in Iowa, that role was filled by the State Public Policy Group, or SPPG. But please know that this model that you're looking at, that I'm going to talk to you about, and that the students that are served here in a little bit in Nebraska, that all of that is replicated across the country and sits on the U.S. Department of Education website, as well as each state's state website for the United States Department of Education / Iowa / Alaska, whatever the case may be. Anyway, okay, moving on. So if we were in real time, I would ask you to do something right now. And there's a point. I would ask you to stop and think a moment or two about something that you recall, or maybe several things that you recall from your K-12 education. It wouldn't have to have been in before school or after school or summer school. Could have been just during the regular school day. Something that stands out in your mind, that when you think back to going to school, it's like one of the first things that pops into your head, in a good way, not like maybe a bad thing. That was a joke. So I'm going to just pause for a second and ask you to think about that. Now, even though we can't share live with each other what that might have looked like and why it stands out, I'm going to guess that what you remembered was one of several things. It was either fun, different, you got to do it with your friends, and it really made an impact on you. Because why? Because it's the first thing you remembered when I asked you this question. So believe it or not, that's really the essence of what after school has to be. It has to be fun, We'll find out why you want to keep it fun here in a minute. It has to be different, unique. I strongly believe it's the perfect place to have kids work as teams, and we'll talk about why that's so important in a little bit. But at any rate, please keep that in mind as you're working with youngsters. And I know, I do know, it's been a while since I was first doing this sort of work with young folks, but trust me when I tell you that what you teach them is important, what they learn from you, but they're learning from you every minute. There's a thing that I had on my wall as a teacher. You may never remember what I taught you, but hopefully you'll remember how I made you feel. And if you can invest a little bit of your person in that little person, that's really the best thing you can do for that kid. But I know they'll learn tons from you, trust me. I know lots. Okay, I wanted to talk specifically about what I consider the gold standard in after-school programming, and those are the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And again, they are nationwide. They were mandated by a law. We'll talk about that in a minute. But here's why I call them the gold standard. So you can have, a Y program, which is fabulous, YMCA program, Boys and Girls Club, also fabulous. Faith-based programs, fabulous. There could be private groups out there, fabulous. This is the only one that's been studied for over 20 years. And it was set up to be studied. It was set up to be studied. So if you have a CLC, you're getting federal dollars to put in a program that has to look like this thing I'm going to show you in a minute, then you have to, at the end of that year, and every year that you're funded, you have to show what happened to the kids that you served. What was their attendance like? What was their achievement like? What was their behavior like? And what was their engagement like in family engagement? What was that like? What did it look like? And when you have a program like this where kids opt into it, then you can track them every single day. The best part of that is you have a control group literally in the same school. You can also track them to find out which is more beneficial, a 21st century program or no program. And we'll find out what that looks like here in a little bit. Again, I mentioned that this program was started years ago with an act signed into law in 1989 by President Clinton. It has received since then, and because of these annual evaluations and what they show legislators and folks on Capitol Hill, this particular piece of currently called the Every Student Succeeds Act has been supported in a bipartisan way ever since it was first instituted. And because of those remarkable evaluation statistics that I'll share with you specifically in a minute. I wanted to just share with you, I know that you probably realize that our national budget is on a fiscal system and it ends the 31st of July. And so then the new fiscal year begins August 1st. And so in the last budget round, 21st Century Community Learning Centers got a nice bump of 1.17 billion nationwide, and that's passed out on an as-need basis based on your free reduced lunch population and your overall student population in your state. So obviously states that have more population with more kids in need are going to get more of that 1.7 billion. Just as a kind of a reminder, notice that what Nebraska got this last fiscal year. And on the next slide from the Nebraska Department of Education is where you can get this map, by the way. But I wanted to point this out to show you just exactly where the CLC money goes. And if you can think about the population centers where there's heavy population in our state, these are the places, right? I mean, there's obviously a couple cities that are larger than the others, but there are clearly pockets of population, of need all across our state. You can see the key down below, the dark green, are folks who've been sustaining programs in the past years. The blue dots are currently funded folks, and then the red dots are the new ones for this next year, 2021-22. Okay, and this source that I've noted at the bottom here on this particular screen is exactly where that map came from. So you'll find all that on the same page. So I talked a little bit ago about exactly what CLCs do for students. And here is some of the amazing stat. And this is 2 years ago, by the way. CLC evaluations are always a year in arrears, but last year they didn't actually report CLC data because it was mainly virtual for the entire school year. So they assessed people a little bit different last year, and it didn't fit this particular constraint. So if you'll take a look at the year before, there were over 20,000 students served in Nebraska. And you can see where they were at, 40 communities across the state and 149 sites. 64% of that 22,474 were what we call regular attenders. A regular attendee, is a student who attends 30 days or more in a school year, or 30 days or more in summer, depending on what program you're doing. Now, so this is not going to mean like little Sandy Day who comes one Friday out of a school year because she needed a place to go. I'm not counted in the 64% of that 22,000, et cetera. But that's a large number, I will tell you that. 64% of 22,474 is a large number of kids, are regular attenders. And if you look at the regular attenders, here's what you see. And this is again, you can find this at the NDE website. It's in this 1, 2, 3 block right in here. You'll see a statistically significant attendance improvement over a school year as compared to non-regular attendees. And when I was a program director, I asked them, why did you come to school more often? And they told me, because it was fun. I got to do fun stuff with my friends, and we had projects. Kids love projects, especially, they've been sitting all day, not doing a lot with their hands. After school is the perfect time for project-based learning. And when you look at a lot of the lessons that I'll show you, a lot of them are specifically that. So if you've got kids coming to school more often, the next thing you're probably going to see is a significant achievement noted. And that's exactly what this data showed. And you may ask yourself, well, doesn't that kind of make sense? If they're in school more often, they're probably going to learn more and they'll do better achievement-wise. You would be exactly right. Here's another thing that I think is really fabulous: statistically significant improvement in behavior incidents. So fewer behavior incidents for regular attenders over non-regular attenders. This last piece was, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it was not the initial intent of 21st century funding way back in 1989. But when you think about it, if kids are in school, more kids are in school, attending these programs, they're having fun, there are fewer kids having a tendency to get into trouble with the law. And nationally, the number is 30%. A community will see a 30% drop in juvenile arrest rate during the after school hours of 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. Have to stop there and say, fun fact, when I was over in Council Bluffs Community Schools, we dropped our juvenile arrest rate from 2015 to 2019. We dropped it 51.3%, which even today still kind of gives me a little, ooh, wow, that's kind of amazing. Yeah, because when kids have fun things to do, that are stimulating, that are exciting, they're going to stay out of trouble. I mean, obviously, because they're doing something great that they want to do. Last couple items here were I just pointed out that, I mean, this law specifically was to access and to help students who are traditionally underserved, students whose families qualify for the free reduced lunch program. The other categories that this legislation was supposed to address and serve are students whose first language may not be English. That's 14%. 58% of the regular attenders were from a racial group, racially identifiable group, and then 18% were students who had individualized educational plans, or they're students of special education documentation, and they're participating in the after school program, before and after school program. So I share that with you because those were the exact populations that this law was intended to serve. Okay, so what exactly does it look like after school? I mean, and you may have already seen this. You may have already been there and done this once before. But to be a CLC, you have to have these components. They can interact in different ways, and you can change them up and all that sort of stuff. And you will see some differences based on the grade level that's being served. But in an elementary, which some of you likely will be in, I'm just going to start there, you'll probably see the physical activity piece first, or you'll see the food piece first. It just kind of depends on the schedule in the building. I mean, if kids typically end their day with physical activity, you'll probably go directly into food. If kids end their day with coming out of a classroom, I'm going to guess you're going to see physical activity first. That's the way it was in my world. And my slogan was, let's get the giggles and the wiggles out so that they can really concentrate on what they want to do here, on what we want them to do. If you start with the physical activity piece, obviously you'll have a restroom break, hands wash on the way in. Typically then there would be some sort of snack. You'll see some schools serve a sack type meal, almost like a sack lunch, a full meal basically in a sack. A lot of times in my sites, some of the teachers wanted to have that back in their classroom because they wanted to teach some pieces of etiquette, which I thought was really creative. But most times it's held in the larger room where teachers can work together and serve the kids together. Then typically after that, there's a component of academic support, and this could look general in a general way, or it could be that you have the site director at your school has an exact list, which is what we had, of little Sandy Day is needing some help with her math. And in particular, this particular kind of math problem. And so the site director would have pulled, activities for me to do, or I would have helped look for those to help. As a teacher, I would have looked for those to help this student. And then what usually ends up the evening, but again, this can move around, are some sort of enrichment pieces. Elementary, middle school, oftentimes they're called clubs, and it can look like a craft club, a cooking club, Lego club, robotics club, holy smokes. Secondary, upper secondary level, oftentimes there's a career focus. And then finally, there's typically a monthly family engagement piece, which is really important and required in a CLC. In these environments, if you're involved, it's a place where kids can, show off the work they've learned this last month, have the opportunity to maybe share a meal with other people, that obviously your mom's there, or your dad, or whoever's with your family, and getting to know the other students in the classroom that you engage with is very important. And so you say to yourself, holy smokes, that's a lot, Sandy. And is there any help out there for me? Take a deep breath. Ready? Go. Yes, there are helpers out there. I am one. And I think I had my email, and I'll end up with that, but I'll make sure that you know that you have that email. And again, remember, all of the resources I'm going to show you here and in other places that say it, but these in particular are free to use. They are activities that are fun. Most of them are set in a do as a team kind of thing, pairs or triads, something like that. And also want to point out they are all aligned to state standards and national standards should that apply. And that's important. Again, it's the gold standard, I'm sorry. But when you are doing things after school that support the in-school learning plan for any kid, you're going to have teachers on your side left and right. And that's what you want. You want the school day people to look at you as part of a team, not just an after-school team. You're part of the team that's helping these youngsters grow up. And I hope you won't forget that you're part of the team. Picture the state of Nebraska that's helping young Nebraskans grow up and be productive citizens. You're part of a big team. Okay, on my home site, you will find lesson plans, many that I have made, many I have helped create. And again, they are all free, aligned to state standards. There's another repository that I think you're really going to like. It's called Mizzen by Mott, CS Mott Foundation, folks with the applesauce. They have created a repository that is remarkable. They've worked on this a couple of years, and I looked the other day, and there's somewhere around 36,000 lesson plans and activities. And when I say lesson plans, sometimes they're organized in a unit. So, you know, a unit as ours, we have many units that you can take pieces of or use in whole. And most of them have, all of them have a reflection, and most of them have an enrichment where you can use that same kind of plan in another way. So this is just a treasure trove of activities, not only at our site, but at Mizzen. There's also some professional development for yourself and all kinds of cool things there. The next one is set up by the United States Department of Education, and it's a repository for lessons, activities, and lots more stuff, particularly science, citizen science pieces. Kids love that, to be part of a larger science collection of data on, let's say, butterflies or other pollinators around the globe. And this site, this U for Youth, Y4Y, is set up to be used across all 50 states. So there is a ton of stuff there. And then finally, just because we could go on forever, but finally, if you have a youngster who's really struggling with different components of reading, I can't say strongly enough how the STEM Nebraska, it's an extension piece from the extension office who worked with the 4-H reading program. It is it is hands down probably the best reading resource I've ever seen. And the cool part is it was developed right here in our state. So take a look at all of that. And then lastly, there's a couple more pieces on our website, on the professional development site. So, there's help. There's help. So I say that because I don't want you to be overwhelmed. Of course, it's kind of normal to feel overwhelmed, but I want you to know there's helpers out there. So if you think that you have to walk into a classroom right away with a whole week's worth of lessons that you don't have time to research, trust me, go to these sites, look up solar energy, or whatever. Look up recycling, look up gardening, look up, I know, go do a nature walk, and then you can build in some citizen science pieces to it. Anyway, do you see my point? There's a ton of stuff out there. You don't have to break your neck in the first few days coming up with your very own lessons. Trust me, use these pieces to begin with. And then that gives you the opportunity to allow your energy to be spent on that most important thing, that personal connection with the kids. Because that absolutely is where it's at. That's the most, if there is a most important thing, that's it. The personal connection and relationship you can make with kids is really more important than, oh gosh, I hope I'm not going to get in trouble. No, seriously. It's more important than anything. It truly is. So let me just back up real quick. I hope I don't get dizzy. Again, there's my email address. Please reach out to me if there's anything I can clarify. If you need something and you can't find it in the sites that I provided for you, I'm sure I can find something that will help you. And also, I'm just going to say congratulations on the work that you're doing. You're doing great stuff. I can't wait to hear when this semester is all said and done, what you learned, what happened to you, what will stick with you. So congratulations, you guys. You're just gonna do great. I can't wait to hear about it.